Hi everyone, Ryan from Avatar Aquatics, and today's video is going to be talking about, here, let me try to fix the camera so it's not like sideways, a little bit slanted. But today's video is going to be on growing plants to fund your aquarium hobby and basically just plants for profit. Now, this is something that I've been doing for quite a while, and I've had a lot of success with it. I've made a lot of money back from the money that I invested into this hobby. A few points of disclaimers. This video isn't going to help you manage a plant farm. Farms are very different in the way that things are set up. This video is for the person who, gets maybe a bi-weekly or monthly extra trimmings that you have to throw away or you don't know where to put them into, and you're just looking for places to maybe get some more money back so that you can fund your next aquarium project. So what this is going to look like is the first couple of minutes I'll be talking about some of the plants that I've really had success with. And the next part, we're going to be talking about how you can actually sell these plants. So let's get started. The first plant that I wanted to talk about is actually called Rotala wallacei. This is a very, very fast growing Rotala species, and this species does not require highlight or CO2 in order for you to grow them. That's why I think it's very, very good for a plants for profit video, because you can tell your clients or your customers, hey, you don't necessarily need a super high-tech setup to grow this plant, and you can guarantee that. The second plant that I want to talk about is going to be a plant that you should stay away from selling too much of, because the problem with this plant is it isn't something that a lot of people need, or it's not something that a lot of people can grow. And that is a very similar species, the Rotala atra. The Rotala atra, if you were to grow it well in a nutrient-rich substrate, it does not need a lot of things. However, what it does need is high CO2 concentrations and very high light in order to reach that really, really beautiful red color that a lot of people want from the Rotala wallacei. So sure, you can grow it, it'll be useful, but the problem with it is it won't be super red like in the pictures. Now, the two Rotalas, I would say, are probably two of my most wanted plants, Rotala wallacei and Rotala atra. Whenever I mention that I have Rotala wallacei, people ask me, do you also sell Rotala atra? I say yes, but I also caution them that, hey, this plant, in order to be super red, needs a lot of high light and good CO2. In terms of what it'll look like without CO2, it's going to be more of a bronze color. It's not going to be super red. It might be a little bit shorter, and the stem will be a lot longer in terms of how many leaves that you get per sort of inch of stem. So you'll usually, if you have highlight and good CO2 and nutrition, the stems are very, very short, and there's a node with leaves coming off of it in a very compact manner. But because you don't have enough light or you don't have enough nutrients, the leaves try to reach to the surface where there is enough CO2, and so the leaves will actually be very, very sparse, and you'll see a long stem with a leaf and then another long stem with a leaf. So that's what usually happens. Another thing that I want to caution you guys when you're sort of growing plants for profit is two of the most asked for plants is Monte Carlo, hairgrass, and even baby tears, dwarf baby tears. Those are very, very popular aquarium plants for carpeting. However, when you are selling plants for profit, if you have excess perfect. But if you don't, those aren't plants that you want to start growing, because number one, they take up a lot of surface area in your tank. And the second thing is they don't grow really fast unless you have a lot of nutrients and CO2. So if you have a low tech tank and you want to grow plants for profit, I advise that you stay away from carpeting plants. And the only great carpeting plant that I actually use to grow for profit is Stargine repens, S repens. And that plant is one of those plants that everybody loves, grows super well, even without any filtration, CO2, or light. You can grow this plant with ambient sunlight from a window, and it'll do perfectly well for you. In fact, with this plant, you don't even need to put this plant in substrate. As long as you have enough nutrients in the water column, you can actually just float this plant off, or you can attach it to rocks. It's a really cool aquascaping look when you actually have this plant growing out of the cracks of the stones. If you have dragonstone or if you have wood, you can actually have this plant growing on the wood. In terms of other plants that you can grow, well, I like moss. It's a problem when you're growing moss in a low-tech tank, because the moss might not be as green, and it might not grow as fast as you want it to grow. And it always seems like if you offer moss, people will buy it, and people will buy it to the point where you don't have enough moss in order to sell it all. So you'll be out of stock a lot of times. If you do have a high-tech tank and you have excess moss, or if you have moss, I definitely consider using that as something that you sell. Now, another thing that you can consider is red root floaters, or salvinia, or even frogbit. Notice that I didn't say duckweed. There's a sort of belief in our hobby with that duckweed isn't too good. However, to me, duckweed is one of those plants that, yes, it's hard to remove, but you can remove it if you do it over the course of a couple days. And just on the first day, just net it all up. The second day, you're gonna have some stragglers, and get rid of that. The third day, same thing. And then by the end of maybe 4 or 5 days, you'll be great. You'll be done with removing duckweed. Yeah, it's a lot harder to remove than other plants, but it is possible. And duckweed does not take pretty much anything to grow. You can toss it on top of any tank, and it's gonna do well for you. Duckweed is also very, very good for little baby fish, baby shrimps, and also things like bettas. And the only thing that I would say is, if you are planning on growing duckweed, grow it in another tank and separate from all of your other tanks, so there's no contamination, because a lot of people don't like it in their plant. Red root floaters, on the other hand, are something that everybody wants if they have a tank, because red root floaters look absolutely beautiful. They're larger and they're easier to remove. However, they grow a lot slower than something like salvinia or duckweed. In fact, I would say red root floaters are actually harder to keep too, because a lot of times when you transfer red root floaters, these guys tend to melt. So now that I've talked about some of the plants that are very, very commonly used, that I use and I've had success with, let's start talking about where to get rid of your plants. Because like I said, if you're someone who's had a lot of trimmings and you don't really know where to put them, what's the first thing people always suggest? Well, 2 places, right? The fish store, or your local aquarium club. The biggest problem that I see with fish stores is not everyone has a fish store that's close by that they can afford going to every 2 weeks or every month. And if they do, fish stores won't give you a lot of money for your plants, because they've got to run the risk of is it contaminated with any pests? Um, who's gonna actually buy it? And if you haven't thought about it, a fish store, if you have fish tanks in a fish store, they need that to be something to sell out of. If you have a lot of plants and a whole bag full of trimmings, that employee has to spend a lot of time sorting through everything. They have to, look for really ugly looking leaves and pests, and that might take up tank space that they could have used to sell another fish. So most likely, something, for example, Rotala Wallachia online is around $7 to $10. The fish store might only give you $3 for it. Sure, if you're not looking to make a lot of money, that's a great way to do things. However, if you're looking to try to break even from this hobby, there are other places that you can go to. They might require a little bit more work, but other places that they can go to that you can sell this for a little bit more money. Another thing with fish stores is a lot of people come in and they just do exactly what I said. They hand them a bunch of plants and they say, here, take this. I don't really need it anymore. Well, why would the owner buy from you if he knows that other people can come in and they drop off plants and fish all the time for free? That might actually even be a excuse that he gives you. Other people give me plants. I don't need your plants. I'm sorry, but it's fine. Especially if you give them something like moss. They have no idea what's hiding in the moss. So, your second place. Something like an aquarium hobby group, either on Facebook or in person. However, right now, with everything that's going on, it's pretty much impossible to find some place that's responsibly meeting in person. And I don't expect you to. You could do this online, something like a Facebook group with local fish keepers. The only reason why I say there might be better ways is because you end up competing with a lot of other people for selling plants. And yes, every time that I've offered plants on my aquarium group, it has been picked up and taken and purchased. But what I've done usually is, because the people in my aquarium group help me a lot in terms of asking for help for breeding projects or recommendations and everything. So what I'd like to do is I discount that price that I would usually sell it for by at least 50%. And I'll offer up a whole bunch of plants for maybe $5-10 total. The last thing that I would do, and the best way that I would think about this, is to post on somewhere like Facebook Marketplace, Reddit. You can do Craigslist or OfferUp, all these places where you are sort of a more anonymous seller. And I know Facebook Marketplace tells you exactly who you're buying from, but the other sites are a little bit more anonymous. And you can say, this is what I have. Someone come get these because there's too much of it. And post a very good picture, the best picture you can ever have of your aquarium, of your plants. And then once people see that, they'll contact you. And this is the next one. This is like the most important part. Meet in a safe public area. Don't ever have them come pick up from your house, because that's just asking for trouble. People come pick up and they're like, what else you got? What else you got? Or if they're not happy with it, they come back and knock on your door and they're like, hey, I don't like this. That's just weird. Don't do that. Public area always. So that way you can say, let's say Walmart. You go to Walmart, meet in the parking lot and say, okay, I gotta go shopping now, or I'll see you later. Bye. Thanks for your purchase. But essentially, have the price in your ad, have where you want to meet in the ad, have the species name, have the pictures, and what you do is when they message you about something, hey, do you have so-and-so available? Such and such. Say, yeah, I do, or no, I don't. But if you do, say, yeah, and I can show you what a portion looks like, and it's just like the pictures that you've seen on my ad, because not only are you going to take a great picture of your aquarium, you're going to take a great picture of the portions that you have too. Spread them out with a ruler next to them so they know exactly what they're going to get. And you send them a picture of all their order. And the next part is obviously going to be, how do you get the money? Well, in normal days, I would say cash is good, but because of everything that's going on, consider opening up a Venmo account or a Cash App or a PayPal account, something where you can electronically request and send and receive money, so you don't have to worry anything about, do I disinfect the dollar bills that he just gave me? Now, that's all on selling and what kind of plants that you can grow for profit. So let me talk a little bit about the difference that I've noticed in high-tech plants and low-tech plants in tanks. In general, in high-tech plants, with high-tech tanks, the plants inside grow much faster, much larger, but when you put them into a low-tech tank, they also melt back much easier and much more than if you grew a plant in a low-tech environment, you grew it out, you put it into another low-tech environment. It looks exactly the same. It hardly ever melts. So when you are talking with someone who's interested in buying your fish, think about it like this. If they have a low-tech tank, tell them that you've got some low-tech plants for them, and take from your low-tech tanks. If you don't have low-tech tanks, if you only have high-tech tanks, you can tell them that, hey, this plant is great for high-tech, grows really well. In low-tech plants, in low-tech tanks, they might melt back just a little bit, but it'll grow back. But actually mean it, actually try to do that experiment beforehand, so that the person who buys from you won't have a whole bunch of dead plants 3-4 days later melted out, and then they won't say, he was a horrible salesman and I'm never gonna buy from them again. Because more often than not, if you sell them good plants from the beginning, you're gonna get a return customer. They're gonna message you out of the blue one day and say, hey, what other plants do you have? They'll send you, and this is great because I love doing this interaction where they'll send you a picture of your plants in their tank doing very well, and then you can say, yeah, I've got this that also suits your aquarium. If this plant works well, this other plant will also do really well. And the next time you can say that, you can tell to your other customers, you can say, I've got someone who's had really good success with this plant in a low-tech environment just like yours. And so that's sort of responsible salesmanship right there. Now, if you have a guy with a CO2 infused RGB tank with, ADA lights, glass lead pipes, purple with Oase filters, you can say, okay, I've got some high-tech plants too for you. Got that red Rotala Atra everyone's looking for, and give him the Monte Carlo if you have him. He's gonna probably know how to handle it, and more often than not, you can actually do a trade with him. He'll give you some of his plants, you give him some of yours, and everyone benefits at the end of the day because you have another species you can sell. Now, in terms of how I do it, I do most of my breeding or growing, if you will, in high-tech tanks with some of the other things like moss, rotalas, and like Anubias in low-tech tanks, because I know that they're gonna do fine. They're not really going to change their growth rate just because of, especially Anubias and Java Fern, they're not really gonna change their growth rate because of CO2. I ended up, two of my best sellers was hornwort and Alodia or Anacaris. Anacaris. It's basically this like really fast growing plant everyone loves because it doesn't require anything. You can float it on the top just like hornwort, and it offers an amazing place for your baby fish. by asking your customers what they want and what they need it for, you can do much better recommendations. Don't when they message you, it means that they saw your ad, they read through it maybe, and they were interested. So don't just send them another list of plants that you have. Ask them like, yeah, what were you looking for? What do you want to use it for? What kind of tank you have? Do you have a picture? What kind of lights? What kind of substrate? Stuff like that really helps. Number one, make you more friends in this hobby, because who knows, they might have that trip that you were looking for the longest time that was sold out everywhere, and you can trade them for it. But stuff like that helps you gain sort of this verbal reputation that people pass around. Because I've had people do so well with my plants, and they liked the way I was talking to them, that they recommended their friends to me, and then I ended up making more sales from it. The last thing I want to say before I end this live stream, and I know it's a little bit shorter than the other one, but I have to go do some other stuff. But the last thing I wanted to talk about is try to keep a record of everything that you sell, and everything, and how much money you make, and who is it bought by, because it's really helpful at the end of the day to say, how much money did I make from this hobby? How much money can I spend in this hobby? For example, if you've got like a significant other or parents, or just yourself, set a goal for yourself. Say I've already spent $200 in this hobby. I'm not gonna spend any more until I make back $50. And that way I can spend a little bit more, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So keep a record of everything. And what that helps also is to help you plan out, what kind of plants do you plant? Do I plant more hornwort because everyone needs it for their little baby fish? Or do I plant more S. repens, because in this area, a lot of people are looking for easy carpeting plants. So let's talk about something like Anubias or Bucephalandra. Those plants are beautiful plants. They're one of my favorite plants, but they're not really good for plants for profit, just because it takes so long to grow them that you're really not going to be making much of a profit. And the electricity and the lighting and the filtration, the CO2 is not really going to be worth it in the end. So that's it for this live stream. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and next time I'll try to do another live stream when I can, and talk about another topic for you